No, that's not very unlikely. I'm sure we can get it.
Hello and welcome back to a special episode of Boys Gone Wild. Let's go say that. This is a late night special. We have to work aggressively around Drew's harrowing routine, as he's one of the only people making money in this house at the moment. So we have to kind of work with that. And he's gone off 6s till 3s, and he's now on 9s till 6s. So we have to do it late into the late hours. We've never really done a podcast this late, so it's new territory for us. That's why we've lit it differently, because I felt like, you know, you don't want the white harshness when we're doing a late night special. So it's might be a bit smoother. It might be a little bit tastier, I think. And it's definitely going to be... we're going to delve more into dark devilish delights, I think. So anyway, how are you doing, Drew?
I'm feeling a bit odd.
Yeah?
It's been a weird day. I've been... As you say, I've transitioned from the 6s to the 9s, which is nice. Allows you a bit more sleep. But... I'm not sure if everyone will be familiar with it, but we all probably are aware of Joe Rogan.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Well, no, but I'm saying,
famous people on the planet.
not aware of Joe Rogan, but aware of the specific podcast with Duncan Trussell, which he released as his first Spotify episode, and it's a 5-hour-long podcast.
Yeah.
And if you've seen it or are aware of a few of the ones they've done before, it's a very intense, odd vibe.
Yeah.
I mean,
Duncan Trussell's the guy who made Midnight Gospel.
Yes. I mean, I adore him, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it's a 5-hour-long podcast, and I feel both inspired and intimidated after watching it, because it's incredible to listen to.
Yeah,
I enjoy it a lot. As in,
what the new rounds you reach?
Well, the new rounds you reach, because like every kind of sequence of it is like they're talking about Hindu philosophy or Buddhism and like the different levels of tantra you can access via DMT, and then and then Rogan just goes, that's the thing about archery.
Yeah.
And it's both absolutely terrifying, engrossing, and entertaining and fantastic to watch all at the same time. But it's a 5-hour podcast. I do 8-hour work days, but it hasn't stopped for some reason.
What do you think? It's just that it's got like a mystic, endless quality to it.
Yeah, it's just I haven't even finished it. Like I swear I've listened to it for the whole day, but for some reason it's only just finished now.
We should do an episode on Joe Rogan as a boy gone wild. But what do you think about Joe Rogan? He very much is a boy gone wild.
He is what I find that's... So a lot of the time with podcasts in general...
Yeah.
Is I find it so with something like a TED Talk, or if someone's speaking about their point of view, it's very easy when you're listening to it. So an intelligent person who kind of articulates himself well and is rational, putting a point of view across well. Yeah. You naturally are going to start to believe that point of view in that moment. Yeah. So what I kind of like about Joe Rogan in that sense is as you were saying earlier, he doesn't really a big part of him, he doesn't confine himself to any of the isms. He's not, a capitalist, a communist. He very aggressively stands by his own rationality of thought, and he's going to think for what he believes in. But then sometimes he doesn't remember the platform he has.
Yeah, because he's like weird, because he's like, once again, it's funny to bring up, like Rishi Sunak, he's tiny. He's 5'7".
What tiny Sunak boy?
He's only an inch taller than my boy Dishy Rishi.
Is he?
So
Joe?
Joe's tiny, which makes a lot of sense.
Sense.
He's got small man syndrome.
I'm not confused by it.
No, at all.
No, okay, cool.
Because you wonder what's this driving thing? Why are you constantly making yourself bigger? Why are you constantly learning how to fight? It's because you're a tiddly little...
It's like wearing platform shoes, having your own multinational podcast successful.
Because he would absolutely ruin me in a fight. Like, absolutely ruin me. But it is just funny.
I like that you even have to qualify that.
Yeah, I just putting the thought in your head of him absolutely ruining me in the fight. But it's been funny being ruined by someone who's like
really small,
tiny. He's a
tiddly
tiddly
you can
little.
Be hospitalised. Yeah, but you're still like
he's a tiddly little fella.
5'6".
He's still, even though I'm fully in paper mache or whatever they do.
Paper mache.
What is it? It's the same concept, isn't it? When you've got a cast.
I was about to say the piss out of you, but weirdly you might be right.
Was it paper mache?
It can't be that juvenile.
No, it's no. You can't see
it's
little
like
bits
it's
of
like
newspaper.
A cast. No, it's not. It can't.
Yeah, but I think it is using paper, and it does come
like wet paper.
Derived from France.
Yep.
Yeah, so wet paper. I'll be covered in wet paper. What I find interesting about Rogan is he's a bit of a dum-dum, and he gets really good people on, and he has really interesting conversations, and it's the biggest platform in the world now.
I don't think he is a dum-dum.
He's sometimes unbelievably stupid.
Yeah, but when a guy does 1,600 podcasts that last for like 3 hours, we're all gonna look dumb for a few bits of that.
Yeah,
I think it's unfair to call him a dumb.
No, because I think like that's what's good about him is he's curious, inquisitive, and like he gets people on and he asks them questions and lets them talk, and is like a good interviewer in that sense, and has a curious mind. But he's very gullible. He admits so himself. That's why he gets so many conspiracy theorists on, and like pseudo historians and stuff. Like he's admitted like one of his problems that he just wants things to be true. But I remember he had this mental conversation with Rob Lowe, who was much wilder than I ever thought.
I'm kind of obsessed with Rob Lowe.
Yeah, because he's like very handsome but too handsome.
But he's also insane. If just like the way in which he talks.
Yeah.
And he's actually got zero self-awareness as well, which is always fantastic for a guy like him.
Yeah, so he got Rob Lowe on, and they're just talking about Pompeii, and Rob Lowe was talking like he's an expert on Pompeii, and then Joe was like, "Yeah, Romans, that was like 1,000 years ago," and then Rob Lowe was like, "Yeah, I know," and like he set it up as if he's this expert on Pompeii, and then that might sound petty, but that is kind of mental. I know you're not the best example.
Again. That was that. Even I was going to say.
I shouldn't be bringing it up with you.
Even I was aware of the poor time.
Yeah,
frame of that.
1,000. That was like 1,000 years ago.
But I'm at the other end of the computer going, "Fuck yeah, man, that was 1,000 years ago."
But it's the American thing, which is like, he is like because this Russell Hicks, who's an American comedian, has a bit about it. Where he basically says like Americans, they're not stupid. Like everyone says America's stupid, but they put a man on the moon. They've done so many inventions. They're not stupid. They're just fucking ignorant as shit. So like you'll meet smart Americans who are like Harvard, and they'll still be like, so where is Birmingham? It doesn't like even like the smartest Americans are all a little bit stupid just because. American culture is like a TV that we're all watching. Yeah, and they're in the TV. So they can't look out of the TV. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was getting a bit contrived, that metaphor. No, I was nearly there.
I actually stopped listening because I was thinking about the next sentence. So luckily we're all good. But the amount of times to validate that, the amount of times that even in that podcast with Duncan Trussell, that the amount of times I just said the phrase "the Great American Experiment," and it's even when someone like Duncan Trussell, who you feel has transcended the bonds of consciousness and reality, still harks back and believes to a certain extent about the American dream, and they talk quite candidly and honestly. It's not necessarily they're backing what the American dream is, but they still believe in its kind of essence, whereas I feel like the rest of the world has kind of forgotten about it, or said clearly it isn't something. The American experiment, the Great American Experiment, has failed, but Americans always have that thing within them. There's still something pure about it, still something that could work about it.
I don't disagree with that. I think there's a lot about the American dream that's pretty sick. Yeah? I like a lot of it.
What?
Because I mean, there's loads of issues with it, but as far as experiments have gone politically, there has been some pretty inspiring elements to it. Obviously, we've all studied of mice and men at GCSE. We all know it's not all it's made up. That's where
most of my information's coming from, to be honest.
We've all done the spark notes of mice and men. Maybe the American dream is more of an American nightmare. But there's elements to it for sure that I really like.
Yeah, but I'd ask what elements. I don't want to, make this team.
We don't want to ruin the podcast this early on.
Yeah,
is that what you were saying?
Pretty much. Well, what elements of the American dream? You tell me.
Yeah, America gets a lot of flack for being. I think it's interesting how some countries are sophisticated and how some countries aren't. Like I know that the French and a lot of like Europeans, they look down on like the English world, the Anglo world a bit. So like France, Spain, Italy, kind of like mainland Europe as being a bit brutish and unsophisticated. So like Australia, Canada, England, and but then and in many ways they are. If you look at like the way our eating habits and some of the architecture, you can see it as being a bit primitive in comparison. But then what I realised as well is something. It's kind of we're naive in some ways and they're naive in others. Like I've noticed, I think Europeans, like mainland Europeans, I think the English world has a really sophisticated irony and sense of humour and like a self-awareness.
Absolutely.
That you notice by seeing like, I don't know, comments on Facebook from people from other countries. There's just like there's a level of irony that seems, and like even if you look,
it's almost like a national understanding of irony.
Yeah, well, it's not just national because it's across the whole Anglophone world.
Yeah,
like because America has a very sophisticated sense of humor, and so does there's Canada, Australia, and all that. But then you like French humor or stuff like that. It's like weirdly naive. So like I don't know. We'll be
losing a lot of viewers with this.
No, we're not, because French people don't listen to this shit. But because it's just funny that like I don't know. You look at an English calf and you'll be like, this is so fucking. We're such like unsophisticated swine compared to like even in impoverished parts of France, there's still like a real
boulangerie.
There's a real sophistication
compared to the cafe. The equivalent of the cafe is the boulangerie.
Yeah, boulangerie, and it's all like loads of
Fresh,
those kind of elements of often European culture. The men are always better dressed, like stuff like stuff
always
like
got
that.
better hair,
and just things like that. It just seems,
and they age better. They age so much better.
And as an Englishman, you kind of look across the channel and you think, God, we really are just like bloody puffy red faced kind of brutish swine.
We have a laugh about it.
But then you hear some of the jokes they crack, and you're like, wow, Jesus Christ.
We'll keep these guys around. We'll keep these guys around. Yeah, no.
But it does change, actually, weirdly. I think it's quite... I've noticed a fairly unsophisticated sense of humour across a lot of, like, France, Spain, Italy at times. But where it starts getting really good again is, in my experience, is, like, war-torn Eastern Europe. So like, I meet a lot of like Eastern European comedians, and they're hilarious. Like any comedians from Romania or like Croatia or anything that was tore apart by the kind of breaking up of the Yugoslavia. Yeah. They're hilarious. They're really funny. They're really funny people. And I think it's because...
Do you think part of that is the turmoil that they've gone through?
Yeah. But then we really haven't been through that much turmoil. So
no.
I don't really know what it is.
But then, mate... well, that's the classic thing of comedy being, well, part of it, comedy potentially being the way to kind of combat adverse situations. Mm-hmm. Often you either cry or you laugh. That's the classic thing. And laughter is... Oh, yeah, every time.
Next question.
Hey. But part of that, so there's this theory that comedy actually came from when we went from, oh, shit, what's the word?
Hunter gatherer.
Yeah, but so when you don't move,
nomadic to.
Yeah, no. Nomadic's
the opposite of it.
Yeah, I swear nomadic might be the one where you walk.
Yeah,
I think nomadic.
When we went from sitting
down to moving around.
You're a history student. It's fucking ridiculous.
When we went from that one to that one, when we started moving around.
Yeah.
When we started not marching, but walking in massive groups. And then, so there's a theory that laughter came from when someone would fall down in that group and often get trampled on. Laughter was the reaction that came from, instead of feeling that intense pain and sadness, you laugh about it and then you get back up and you keep walking. That's a theory about where laughter comes from, where comedy comes from. I thought that's just an interesting point. Right?
Yes, but because I wonder how that applies to like how humor, because I find humor across the world really interesting.
Yeah.
Like,
oh god. Yeah.
As like a way of studying like cultures, like I find, because I even find like this like humor's in this country, in the way that like Italy, you look at a map of Italy and every like 5 miles there's a different cuisine almost. Like the way that their cuisine.
Whereas our chips get slightly more soggy the further south you get.
It's really not that much change when you look across, but like Italy, it's like every like town has their own delicacies.
When I was in Napoli recently, there was almost the waiter ran me through the different kinds of specialty tomatoes they all have in their different
just
regions.
Incredible, just completely alien.
And I'm there, a tomato's a tomato, bitch. Now go get me a fucking margarita and a Peroni. You're not getting the tip either.
Yeah, exactly. But then I've noticed that I think there's like I've noticed really specific regional sense of humour.
Yeah,
is what I've noticed in the UK.
Definitely. Definitely.
Because I genuinely, we went to uni in like Leamington.
Hell yeah, we did.
Because I started doing comedy. When I stopped doing uni gigs, like my first proper gigs were travelling around the Midlands to like all these like forgotten towns and things like that. And there's
just
the
idea of you going around the Midlands after doing uni gigs makes me so nervous for you.
I remember Cradley Heath is this great place, this like place north of Birmingham, and there's this place called the Hollybush. shout out. It was where I did my first non-uni gig. And the people there, there was a collection of like 6 or 7 regulars who go there every Thursday because it's on weekly. Stubbo and his friend, and they sit there, they smoke a joint, and then they just kind of like ask questions to comedians. And the first thing he said to me, he goes, "So where y'all from?" And I was like, "From Brighton." He goes, you know what? One guy once asked me if I'd suck a dick for £1 million. And I was like, yeah, I'd need the money, but the idea of sucking a dick, I don't think I could do it. And that's the first thing he said. Didn't even bring up Brighton, just because I said.
So that didn't happen in Brighton. No. I presume that would happen. No. So it's more just.
It's just like, so you're probably
just one layer of polite conversation, and then just say what you want to say. Do you reckon he says that to everyone he meets?
Probably.
So I think the one that is almost the easiest comparison, but also an important comparison to make is, so I don't know, a lot of the comparison between comedy I think a lot of people do, is England and America.
Yeah.
Is because it's funny. So I think also because there's the most easy comparisons because we've had such similar-ish content that have a slight different angle of something.
Yeah.
So if you look at the US versus the UK office, it's kind of like a really stark example of it. Just the bleakness of the UK comedy versus almost every US comedy that's going for it. So you could almost compare like the thick of it to Parks and Recreation. And almost at the end of every single episode of US comedy, it's, but things are going to be okay. If we believe in ourselves and our friends, everything's going to be just fine, man. You know, we're going to be all right. Whereas in the UK, it always ends on shit's horrible. But then the series finale or the show finale always ends with, it might be all right.
It might be.
We give one. So like Dawn and Tim's love in the office. But they do, Americans do that every single episode. Every single episode. And like the comedy in it is fantastic, but it's just horrible for English people to digest in that way. Yeah, because it's like, I mean, I think of like my favourite shows, I'd probably say I find the UK shows funnier, but I struggle. I can't watch them. Me too. Yeah, it's like they're like on paper, I do think the scenarios and what happens are probably painful, probably funny. But I can't. I can watch the US Office. I've been sticking on Friends when I get up in the morning because it's just an easy watch. It's great. And there's some great. Yeah, I've been tempted. Some great jokes in it. It's really easy, really comforting. I can't stick on a UK comedy. I can't put on the thick of it in the background. It's like I can't put on like the UK Office. It's just too. Do you know what? But now there's been some comments of people who are now accepting your presence more. And there's been quite a lot of people who are asking if you're single. How do you feel about this kind of growing attraction to you from our fan base? I wouldn't define a YouTube comment from a name. Most of the people that are doing this, they have a name. Like it's an adjective followed by a random object. Yeah. So it's one I am, by the way. So that's the answer to the question. That's the answer. Yeah. But it's nothing. Yeah. I guess essentially, but it's nice. I guess I am single. Yeah. I've had some rocky experiences with love. I think, to say the least. Yeah. I'm not very simple with these kind of things. Yeah. It's kind of go hard or go home. Yeah. So let's say we got a lot of because we're getting now a bit more female aesthetic from our mainly male incel base. So speaking to the straight women who are into you, there would be like a pre-warning if you're going to go on a date with Andrew. Yeah, like a nut allergy. Yeah, go on. May contain nuts because D's nuts. That was an unfortunate coincidence. I didn't mean that. Yeah. Well, I guess is it a label warning? I feel like I go as you say, go hard or go home. I go in heavy. Like if I feel like I'm really into someone, I really dive into it. Yeah. Like I'm kind of obsessive. Yeah. Like very obsessive. I lose sight of everything else. Yeah. Absolutely. And this is the only thing that exists. It's like an addictive person might. Absolutely. Yeah, like a deviant. Yeah. Like a sexual disgusting. A gutter slut. Gutter slut is exactly. Maybe I should get that as a tattoo. Gutter slut. Gutter slut on my back. Yeah. The tramp stand gutter slut. Yeah, because then if
if they find problems with the relationship, it's like, I do have it stamped to my arse.
Look,
so like,
that's the warning. That's the Labour warning.
You pretty much signed here and here, and I can
by
do whatever. By the way, I'm a gutter slut.
But I'm kind of weird. I'm very kid crazy at the moment.
Kid, okay,
I'm baby crazy.
It sounded like you're you.
But for fuck's sake,
you just sounded kid crazy when you're talking about who you're into. But go on.
Yeah, I get how it sounded. I'm not trying to. I'm trying to be clear, but it's not.
This is the late night special, so fucking.
No, I'm baby crazy, baby frenzy, baby.
Still creepy.
Stir
creepy. Yeah, I've been thinking about kids.
What's the word?
Your biological clock's ticking.
Oh no, not that I'm running out of time.
No.
Yeah, what is it? It's
baby crazy, maybe baby crazy. Fine.
Frisky.
Yeah, baby crazy. You're a nonce. Go on.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Go on, baby crazy.
In that I just really want kids right now.
Really?
As in, I've got this weird. As in, I don't. Right. I have this. I feel like in the last year.
Yeah.
I just really want a kid right here. If I have this feeling, if there was a chart, like a little boy or a little girl right here that was mine right now.
Still creepy, but go on.
Absolutely. Why is that? No, that's your problem now. You're now reading into it. I have it's so there's two things. There's the practical sense, because of course if it happened I would never actually realistically want one, because it would be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
One, can't afford it. Yeah. Two, don't have the time for it.
What, just raise it here?
Yeah.
It's what, in a house with 4 other 21, 23-year-olds.
I've kind of ruled out the decision of getting a cat as well. So but I feel like they're fulfilling the same kind of need. So I just whenever I see a kid in any context.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm not going to say that. No, you can say. It's clear. We've done the disclaimer. You're not a paedophile.
Any child I see, I just can't help but just feel with this emotion at the moment.
Yeah. Okay.
It's really
that's like a 30-year-old woman, mate.
Yeah.
You've seen to, because I don't have that at this stage.
I really like when BB brought Donnie over.
Yeah, Jesse's kid. Yeah.
Seeing his especially Donnie is a fantastic name.
He's great. Yeah.
Seeing his face, I was just like.
You want one?
I want one. And when he kind of came in for a bit when I was DJing and you said he liked the music, I was like, yeah, that could be my little boy.
I don't know, man. It seems I can't really see. It seems kind of rogue from you, though.
Yeah.
Why is it?
I don't know.
Is it just like a biological urge? So it's completely irrational.
It's a really intense. It's a feeling. It's a feeling because it's not practical. Because like my practicality will overcome. Let's say I was to get into something with someone and there was a kid might be on the way.
Yeah.
I would never suggest we should actually
kill it with fire.
If that's what she wanted. And good lord, we're really getting into consent and paedophilia
and abortion.
Yeah, and abortion. That's the one. But I would, I'd never want one realistically.
But you're finding this urge.
But no, as in like if I theoretically, I'd fucking love one. I feel like if I was back in caveman times or whatever, I'd have 3 by now. And I mean, we'd all probably would have 3 by now.
You need people to help defend the village and shit.
That's true.
So like, you just be popping them out.
You need marksmen.
And like also like our life expectancy is like 35.
Yeah.
So like we're middle aged at this point anyway. So you'd want to be popping them out.
That's very true. But no, it's an deep ingrained urge, and I feel like I've found myself being way more susceptible to kids videos on YouTube. And fake. Oh, for fuck! What else am I going to say?
I don't know what. It just sounds. I know this is puerile.
You're the one being immature.
It is. It's me being immature.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Go on. Go on. Yeah.
So videos of children doing cute things on. Fucking hell.
Sorry.
Videos. You know the cute kid videos, cute cat videos.
Fine. Yeah.
Like I find myself welling up at times to it. I feel like since I became 22, something just clicked, and that I now because I think I want shitloads of kids as well, and I feel like this is a kind of weird combination of loads of feelings that are going on, and I just want. I don't want them in reality, but good lord, do I want them in theoretically or emotionally? I want them.
That is kind of what, I mean, you have brought this up before. It doesn't seem to click fully with what I know about you. It does seem like it's, but you're talking to it more like you're having like a weird craving at the minute. You know, it's like
I don't think that's going to go though.
Yeah, but how many kids do you want? Do you think? Like
again, so if I was to say, sitting here right now with no practical bounds, I'd say like 8. But then with
what the fuck are you talking about?
No, with no practical bounds.
8.
I'd say about
fucking
8.
Mental.
Yeah, it's mental, but it's only mental because it's so
you
impractical.
You have to have some practical bounds, because then fucking 1 million. Why not?
What did I just say?
Okay, go on.
No practical bounds.
Yeah.
I'd say 8. With practical bounds, I want at least 3 minimum.
Yeah.
And I'd say 5. If I'm in a sustainable place where I cannot make that kid's life, all of those kids' life, a misery.
Yeah, that's my main thing.
What do you? How many do you want?
Well, when I was growing up, I wanted 5 for sure, because I love that idea of a big family. But now, just seeing now I know a lot more people with kids, and I see the sacrifice it is. I have to get to a certain position in my own life before I'd even. Well, there's going to be a point where I'll just do it anyway, but I would really need to, focus on my life and get all of a lot of the things I want to achieve. I need to get done before I kind of settle down.
Yeah. Get your rocks off.
Get my rocks off before, because I definitely think I don't want to be like really old when I have kids, but I do want to get. I don't want to resent my kids, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Which is the tough conundrum.
Or them resent me for like having no career.
Yeah,
and providing for them at all.
But I think what you speak to there is very true. It's a classic. Well, for me, it's a conundrum, and I think for many people, it's a conundrum. Of you do want to have them. You do want to have kids when you're young. You're spriteful,
full of spunk,
etc. Yeah. You don't want to have them too old because you want to, properly engage, play, etc. Take them to places. Still have energy for them. Yeah. But at the same time, it'll be a nightmare having kids right now because they would only be a burden to our lives.
100%. Yeah, it's not even in my It's not even in my possibilities now, certainly with my life at the moment. But one thing that it'd be interesting to raise here, actually, is I have always had a fascination with sperm donation. Like, genuinely. And, like, when I've brought this up, I thought more people would connect with it, but very few people agree with me on this. I really considered for a long time sperm donating, because now maybe I'm changing my mind, but for a while, like, I really liked... I don't know, it just, the idea of like, I don't know, just you'd be helping someone out, you'd be giving life to the world, and then it wouldn't be yours anyway. I don't know, and part of me likes that element of spreading, going forth and multiplying.
It's a pure biological.
It's a pure biological thing. It's just like, but maybe it's irresponsible, because to me, I just think it's funny, but that's probably not the right reason. It's just funny, the idea that somewhere, it could be anywhere in the world. It's just like...
Well, quickly, it's weird that you brought that up, because ever since I've had this slight increase in baby craze, I've had a lot more sperm donation adverts appear on my Facebook timeline, which is I feel the Facebook algorithms are getting pretty fucking sophisticated nowadays.
Fuck me.
But I don't know where I stand on it, because I think at the end of the day you're doing a good thing. Surely. Because there are women out there who want kids.
Yeah.
And by just donating your sperm, letting them choose from a catalogue, what the fuck's wrong with that? But I think what's a hard thing to
catalogue.
Well, that's what happens.
Would my picture go in there?
Yeah.
And what would it just say, like...
It would say Hiroshika waste man. It'll be you wearing that.
Athletic.
It'll be your picture, podcast host, and they'll flip over the next page.
Podcast host.
You don't need to put any more information in there, I don't think. But there's an inherent biological and a biological attachment to that child that you're creating, which I think is a really weird thing to try and let go from.
Yeah. Well, because like I had annoyingly Vince Vaughn. There was a Vince Vaughn film called The Delivery Man or something like that with Chris Pratt in it, and it was annoying because that's a concept that I've been vaguely thinking of for a while, and they look like they did it in an awful way.
Vince Vaughn always has the upper hand on you, doesn't he?
He just gets there before I do. But The Delivery Man, the film, has a great fucking concept that I really liked, which is a hilarious concept for a comedy film, but it looks like they made it like a shitty film with like a really uplifting ending. Yeah. But I think there's so many ways to go with it. Do you know the film I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
Basically, from what I can gather from the trailer, Vince Vaughn donated his sperm when he was like a young man, and then there was
in real life.
Not in real life. So like whatever the character's called.
This isn't a biopic about Vince Vaughn.
This isn't a documentary about the truth, but like he's not at all involved in it. It's like the killings of Tony Blair. You know, the documentary about his war crimes. This is like
Vince Vaughn's played by Sean Penn.
But Vince Vaughn, delivery man, or something like that. When he was young, he donated sperm, and then there was like a mess up at the sperm factory, or whatever it is, and he ended up and then he ended up being father of 567 kids, and it's based on a true story, I think, which is one of the wildest things.
Really?
Yeah.
So it is somewhat based.
Yeah, somewhat based on a true story, and then all these there was something happened, like all the kids come back and tried to sue him or something, and I just think. That's so funny having 570 kids is such a funny number of kids. By accident. It's so funny. Yeah, just even as a film, it didn't get great reviews, but as a film premise, there's so much you could do with that. Yeah. Like, imagine having just 500 people in the room. They're all, no, I didn't. Maybe I'll watch it.
There'd be too many like all I imagine the film to be is like different scenes of wacky adventures.
Yeah, like how's he like you? Yeah.
Rather than the cold, harsh, hilarious reality of dealing with having 500 kids by accident.
Yeah, imagine having 500 kids. That'd be fucking hilarious. Just like they all look a bit like you, but they've all gone down different routes. Yeah. Like punks, goths, fucking hippies. Like, oh, it'd just be so funny. And like seeing a room of you, it would be such a like head fuck. Because in the film, from what I gathered from the trailer, is that they all there's a scene with all of them in the courtroom, just like that. And he's like in the witness stand. It sounds like a nightmare you have after eating too much cheese, like standing in the witness box with 500 of you staring back at you.
Is that Vince Vaughn film stopping you from donating your sperm?
No, I think that weirdly triggered it. No, that was definitely a positive feeling.
I see,
that was weirdly me thinking, I can't. People say that there's like bad things that happen, but I don't. What's the bad things that happen? Is it emotionally on me?
What I always expect, because I've considered it when I've been tight for money as well, is that's a bad idea. I wouldn't, even though because you get very little money for it. Yeah.
And like obviously if you need a bit of money.
I'm not saying get into it as a profession.
No, I'm just saying like if you're like in a scrap and you need a bit of cash, that seems like it'll change it'll be. Because you get like 50 quid for it.
Yeah.
But like if you need a bit of cash, ask a friend for money and do it because you want to do it. Don't do it.
Okay. So I'd preface that with I'm saying I don't think I'd ever get the motivation to actually go to a sperm bank and do it.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever be that motivated to do it. But when I needed a bit of money and I'm not, it's something I've thought about, then I might have done it.
Okay.
If that makes sense. But the thing that I'd think in that situation is you're always going to get a knock on your door in 18 years' time.
Always?
Yeah.
No, are you worried about that, or is that what always happens?
What plays out in my head.
Yeah, and that's kind of exciting to me.
It's exciting.
But is that me doing it too much for the intrigue, the anecdote, the story, and is that
you're doing it for the pod?
I'm doing it for the pod, which is a noble cause.
It is a noble cause. One of us should do that.
Do it for the pod.
To be fair, the best way to keep viewership going is if one of us does it tomorrow.
I mean, that's like an 18-year.
Stay tuned for 18 years. And there'll be that one time, and then we get one of our sons or daughters.
Yeah, to come on the pod. Yeah, for sure. And like, God, and I hope they'll be blessed with high podcasting.
What a podcast that
would be. What a podcast. If we both do it at the same time.
Oh my God.
And we both get that'll be so healthy.
I mean, it's so healthy.
Because then they'll be like, oh, I see why.
Why
I'm
alive.
Oh, that would be brutal. Yeah, like you realise that your dad's his fucking because
they're just pure content.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen. Because that's what's the next generation is going to. You're going to have like 8 like in grandparents who's like a podcast host. Like the thing about this, if we have grandchildren,
we're not going to stop like 90, even if people don't listen.
I always think about this. It's like it doesn't look at the moment like there's any way that YouTube have any sort of plan for how they're going to archive their videos.
Yeah, they're not. No. Good.
So are you going to?
You will have to take them down, which is not going to. It's not going to happen.
No, we're not going to take them down. But I'm saying more. There'll be a record of. Imagine seeing your granddads.
Yeah.
70 years, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, whatever it was, when he was our age, sitting in like polarized sunglasses doing a Boys Gone Wild style podcast with his friend. Like how
about
surreal. Well, during the Blitz.
Yeah, during the Blitz. Oh, these bloody bunkers. People don't stop farting.
Well, is that because that's the humour back then?
Yeah, I guess Tina's always eating the tinned bread. So I don't know much about the war.
Is that like a ration joke about?
It was.
Is that about the World War II diet makes you gassy?
Yes.
That was a bold jump, I think.
Yeah. Maybe we've had enough time since the war to make a ration joke. But
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was just
history
straight.
will be my judge, I guess. But I know, because I was thinking that when watching the Rogan Trussell podcast today, is that these are both fathers.
Yeah.
So Rogan is and also it's funny watching. So if you watch that podcast, Rogan often talks about drink and stuff, and it's hilarious seeing him get fucked on air. Like he is blitzed.
Yeah.
As in proper white girl wasted.
Yeah.
And it's funny because he often talks about how he can handle his drink, and he finds it funny when people can't.
Yeah.
He hasn't had that much whiskey. He's fucked.
Yeah.
Which is quite fun.
Yeah, because you're pretty good with your drink.
That's how I get through the day.
Okay.
That's a joke. I'm not a fucking alcoholic.
Well,
but
we don't know yet.
I don't know yet.
We don't know yet.
Give it like 3 or 4 years. and we'll see how I'm dealing with it. It's true. But they're getting, they're drinking, they're getting high. But they're talking. It's not for, I feel like, because it's with something like a podcast, especially their podcast, what they're doing, it's not a frivolous thing. They're drinking and getting high, and they're having really in-depth conversations about the meaning of life, etc. Not that, that blatant. But they're both fathers, and all of their kids are going to be able to see that. And of course they're going to watch it.
Yeah.
Like when they're growing up. And it is seeing your dads doing something pretty ridiculous. And so immediately you kind of think, isn't that a bit... Are you not thinking, do you change your nature when you're doing such a world-renowned podcast when you've got kids, out the worry of setting the right example? But then that, I think, is absolute nonsense, because imagine if your dad, because I'd think, so for your grandpa example, if my granddad was to have done a podcast about Blitz rations.
Yeah, sure.
That'd be fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
And because you get to know them better.
Yeah, and
I feel like
I like the record.
People shy away from that.
Yeah, and like how we don't know much about that generation.
Yeah,
because it was so repressed. But like the amount of shit there is now of me online. There's gonna be a real snapshot of where I was. But
we can't hide from shit.
But like that's partly why I was obsessed with putting everything on YouTube. Like we used to do a radio show back in uni, and all of the stuff is on YouTube, and I made sure it was there because it's the best archive. And like that stuff's all still up there, and you can trace. We did a show every week, pretty much for the whole of
3 years.
For 3 years, so there's like a trace of us completely changing as people.
Yeah. But it's fantastic. It's like a diary.
Yeah.
It's fantastic to have.
But all of this stuff is kind of like what I'm starting to realize is 2020 is weird. We've all agreed this is one of the weirdest years where culture's just got absolutely baffling. So many news headlines happen that you're numb to, but are just completely banana. Like the whole year has just been absolutely mental. But I think that's also just the start of, because of the advancements of technology, it's going to keep on getting weirder, because there will be grandchildren whose grandmas were those people on TikTok. Like, have you seen how ridiculous those TikToks are? Like all of TikTok, those 50 seconds of like the girls dancing and doing all of that shit. That's going to be someone's grandma. And that just, I don't know what that's going to do. And also how the in 1,000 years time, 1,000 years ago is going to be in 4K. It's going to be, you're going to have intense news footage of everything, and you're going to have podcasts.
So then our grandchildren's grandchildren, good Lord, it's almost like they're going to be able to put on a pair of glasses and they can actually step into 10 minutes of their grandparents' lives. It's bizarre,
but also, so ancient Egypt.
We always get back to ancient Egypt.
I was trying to lead it back, and it's taking me quite a while to try and get it back.
For the half an hour.
Just trying to really crowbar it back to
Andrew, how are you?
Okay,
anyway, so ancient Egypt.
Ancient Egypt. That was around 5,000 years ago. What happened circa 5,000 years ago?
The jury's out on that one.
And we look at the sort of temples and the craftsmanship and the paintings, like with the archaeologists who have just undusted. Like they've just found a whole new tomb with all these amazing things, and it's so mysterious. What happens 5,000 years from now? Like the same period where this is 5,000 years old.
Well, that is the interesting thing about history and and so like, and often in history, we're also, as much as we're contemplating who we are in the past and like how we study the past, we're contemplating how the people in the future are going to study us. Yeah. And everything has shifted, because a big part about history nowadays is looking at a source, well, that's what history is, you know, looking at a primary source of something from the either ancient Egyptian times or the medieval times, and trying to create a picture of what life was at that time.
Sure, yeah.
When we've got a fucking hour podcast,
Yeah.
where you're sitting and two people are actively, explicitly stating what they're feeling and what they're thinking,
Yeah.
and what's happening and what they look like, and their surroundings and the houses that they look like, and what the current events are of the day, and a news and 24-hour news cycle to document everything.
Yeah.
What the fuck is history going to look like in the future? Will it exist?
No, but then the thing is, so like one of the key things about history is the skill as a historian
will die out. Sorry.
Well, maybe, but like what's weird is that the skill of a historian is trying to work out the truth from loads of different biased sources and like limited information. But right now,
there's too many sources.
Not just that, but like we can't work out what the present is because of like fake news and things like that. So it's almost like our view of our current time is almost like a historian looking back at the medieval age and trying to piece it together. Yeah. But we're doing that with what's currently happening.
Yeah.
So like them looking back on it,
they
probably will have a better idea because time will have passed and they'll have some. But it might also just be wading through all of that nonsense because
it'll become a different skill.
Yeah.
So like putting a historian for our time looking back into the past is trying to put together a really sporadic jigsaw puzzle that you don't really have proper access to. Trying to put together loads of pieces to create a picture. Whereas it's almost like the future historian is going to be trying to unscrambling so much nonsense and content that even us, as you say, can't really grapple with what exactly is happening, and trying to create a coherent story out of that.
Mm. Yeah. So it's going to be a completely different thing. But I'm almost... It's a shame that... I mean, by the end of our lives, things are going to get so wild. Yeah. And like... that is one I don't have any I've never really had. I'm pretty comfortable with like the idea of death and like how long my life's going to be. The main thing that makes me want it is I just really want to see what happens in 5,000 years time. Like just pure out of curiosity.
Yeah.
It's going to be
fascinating.
It's just going to be so mental because it's not going to look like sci-fi films and our whole prediction. Like if you look at like I was watching what film. I'm watching this anime at the moment, which was made in the 90s, called Neon Genesis Evangelion, which is a wild show, and it's set in this dystopian future, hyper technological, flying cars and shit like that, and it's set in like 2012, like 2011 or something.
Yeah.
And it's just so far off.
I think a lot of when was it made?
1995, I think.
95. Yeah, I think a lot of anywhere between like the 70s and the 90s, maybe the 60s, the 20s to the 90s. There was, there's quite a big thing about the year 2000. So a lot of kind of sci-fi things that are kind of predicting the future. If you're writing something in 1920, 1930, 40, 50, is if you call your book something 2000, it seems right, like Kubrick's 2001 Space Odyssey. There's something about the year 2000. So although I think I think those things are less about the actual time that's passed rather than the year 2000.
Yeah, obviously it's a concept of just like, right, we're all agreed it's in the future. Yeah, it's all agreed. It's not. It's like the future. But I also think it's funny how naive and like. If I was writing a sci-fi now and I was going to do
what year? That was my question. What year?
I would push it to 2,500.
I'd go 3,000.
3,000. Fucking push it so you have like some space. Because Blade Runner looks ridiculous.
Because you might still be alive by the time you're proved wrong.
Blade Runner was set in 2017. Yeah, like the original Blade Runner was like around then.
Exactly, Blade Runner, exactly.
Yeah, and then they made.
But
they made the sequel 2049. It's like you had another chance and you fucked it. You fucked it. 2049. Obviously, we're not going to be.
Ryan Gosling's going to be old. He's going to be decrepit, and he's going to be sitting there, and he's going to be looking like a prick. He's going to be looking like a prick.
Yeah,
so that's the worst thing about sci-fi.
Modern sci-fi, not 50 years. Grow up. Have
some fucking perspective.
It's gonna push it 1,000 because by then no one will be watching it anyway. It'll be far gone. But like at least if you're gonna do like the vague concept of the future, then fucking push it.
Because then you can go to all the film forums and the film festivals, and you can't be proved wrong.
Yeah, so predictions of the future can still be like, well,
you're gonna be dead.
Or more like, well, just wait and see what happens.
Let history judge.
Because no one's going to be there to judge you at the time. They'll be dead.
Exactly. Can I go for a week?
Yes.
Well, this bloody COVID's still been in the news. So I think the big story has been.
Yeah, I mean, annoyingly, the big stories are always COVID related, but this has taken a kind of interesting turn.
Yeah, it would be better actually for the podcast if we weren't in this pandemic time.
Well, the podcast only exists because of this pandemic time.
Ooh.
Anyway, so what you're saying?
Makes you think. So the big one has been the funding to the Greater Manchester area.
Yeah.
Once they've been told to, explicitly kind of told they need to go on the tier 3 lockdown. Which is the big one, which is essentially back to the
but essentially back to the proper
back to the national lockdown that we had. So Mr. Andy Burnham, who I'm a big fan of.
I'm starting to like him, even though he is a centrist cuck. If you look at his actual ideals, but his character I like.
He's better than Keir.
Yeah, but it's not like I saw a tweet saying
a plant could be better than Keir.
But I saw a tweet basically saying like this is the state of things when Keir Starmer's a leader, where even Andy Burnham, a centrist, he makes him look like Fidel Castro, like, and I do sort of see that, like
I've
how
really
he's, because he if you look at his actual ideas, he's like he's not far off a Blair, he's basically Ed Miliband sort of level, but still.
And he lost out to Ed Miliband actually.
Yeah, he left out to Corbyn
and Ed Miliband.
Oh, both times.
Both, yeah, both. But
I like him as a person, but I don't know.
I like his chin and his cheeks.
He looks, he's got a good politician look. Yeah. Where he's like, he's kind of like, he looks like the real person a handsome Hollywood star would play in a biopic. Do you know what I mean? He looks
like, shit. He's kind of weirdly niche, but I've watched Game Night recently.
Who does he look like?
He's in Game Night. Okay, in Wolf of Wall Street, the guy, like the FBI agent.
Oh, he looks like Ron Livingston, is it? Yeah, he looks like Ron Livingston. So
is that the FBI agent?
Yeah. So what I like about Andy Burnham is he looks like he looks set for a more handsome person to play in a biopic. He looks
absolutely.
Like, when a biopic finishes and you've had Brad Pitt, Ron Livingston, like one of these chiseled people, then it comes up with the actual picture. Andy Burnham's got that look of
absolutely.
Like easily a handsome person could play him and it wouldn't be too much of a jump, but he's not that handsome.
He's not, because there's a few things wrong about his face.
Yeah, and his hair's a bit off, but he's got like all the roughly you can get a really handsome person to play Andy Burnham.
What's his face? He looks really like him.
Yeah, like Ron Livingston, yeah.
Yeah. Which I'd love to see.
That'd be a great biopic, like the Defender of the North.
Yeah. Not that much drama.
I don't know, because the kind of general question is about regional and governmental split, and the kind of points he's raised it's just the general confusion that I'm feeling. We've talked about this quite a lot last episode, which is like his main thing is he's trying to protect the economy of Liverpool that's going to take such a hard hit if they go back into tier 3. Manchester. And it's like, it's just that fucking question, which is like, I don't think like Boris Johnson is a villain in many ways. He's done shitty things, but I think in this scenario, I don't think it's as cut and dry as Johnson bad, Burnham good. I don't think it's as clear as that, because it's just two sides of argument and both sides are right and both sides are wrong, which is, do you protect the economy or do you protect health? So that's the whole question, isn't it?
So, yes, it is. But what I think would be the big statistic for me that would kind of back Burnham over Johnson is that, Johnson eventually said, so he walked out negotiations, but he said they'll give them 60 million. But also what was weird is if you look at the end of the press conference, there's the guy, his second-hand man is actually, they're still having the press conference and he's reading out from like BBC News or something or whatever, the amount of money that the government's actually going to give to Manchester, and they're all finding it out through the news.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And he reads it out live on air, and then you see Andy Burnham's like live reaction to that.
Oh shit.
And I think that's been a lot of his thing. One, they're saying like so much of this negotiation and this conversation has gone through the media.
So is he the mayor of Manchester?
He's the mayor of Manchester. Well, we can get to that quickly. The big thing is that, so I think Johnson said they can have 60 mil, whereas Andy Burnham was saying they wanted 90, but they could settle for 75 because it was, I think it's 75, but 75 million is how much you can do the 85% wage furlough scheme.
Okay.
If you don't have that, people go out of work when they're put in a national lockdown and they can't get paid 80 or 85% of their wages.
Okay.
Which is a big problem.
Yeah.
So I get that, because at the end of the day, they're also pushing for 15 mil, which isn't that much that the UK government has.
I don't know. Yeah, it's just general. Like, I've read a stat as well that apparently the north of England economically is the same, adjusted for inflation, as East Germany back during the height of Soviet Union. So it's a similar divide, which is in the media seen as like a derelict, left, forgotten, destroyed by communism,
and a lot of those
Germany.
feelings.
And it's like that's just what it's the same thing, but with capitalism, where you pushed all the money, and like the underfunding, even going up to north, and like the underfunding of trains and just general transport links is ridiculous. And like the north isn't even that bad compared to like parts of Wales, Northern Ireland, Cornwall. Like just all of these places are lacking funding for sure. But I think
and that definitely goes into it. I think we can't forget that.
So that's what this is like a battleground for that general conversation.
Especially given a lot of the last election, there was this massive surge of Tory voters in the north.
Yeah,
and it's like they're almost going because of like these new.
But there wasn't in Manchester, Liverpool.
Was there not?
So that's rural. So like he also knows that Manchester and Liverpool probably are very metropolitan centres. They're still gonna we said never about the north, so they could easily switch. But it seems like they're pretty that whole
surplus
part is pretty set on being Labour. But yeah, it's because it's still about if you make the wrong decision and people die, you might get voted out. So
I agree that it's.
So you just give more money if you're Boris Johnson. That's what you do.
Well, you would, because it isn't in the grand scheme of things. It's not that much.
Yeah, I guess so.
In order to get to allow, I think the furlough scheme's big for me, because surely that has to be a minimum requirement of putting a region into that level of lockdown.
I think I don't know. My main views on it is this, like, and I've raised this with kind of a few people. It's like, is there not a way that we can lock down people who are at risk and let people who aren't at risk run the economy? I just don't. It's complicated and it'll mean a lot more admin, but we're at risk of being a lost generation, and it just seems like there's a middle road where we can protect, because we're just not at risk at all, and we're going to bear the brunt of it economically more than anyone else.
So I think for us that are living as 23-year-old guys in a house, that's fine. But so there's a lot of what that does is further isolates the vulnerable, because that means that bubbles just become vulnerable bubbles rather than a bubble of someone that, so like taking my grandpa or something at home who's seeing mum and my stepdad. If you say, because they'd be designated as fit people who aren't at risk, then if we open up the entire economy to that, then you kind of shut off the vulnerable. And I think...
Yeah, but it's like, are we choosing... That sucks, but does it suck more than a 10-year recession?
But to a certain extent, if you're looking at, so like in London, that's kind of happening now, as in not the 10-year recession, as in like you can go, people are going to work, mostly it's working from home.
Yeah, but like
there's freedom of movement,
travel, the nightlife, clubs are shutting, like no clubs being open, all of these kind of arts, culture, they can't run things properly, stuff like that. Those are all getting fucked. What about running, doing theatre for cheap for young people to all go, and then trying to keep those theatres alive, doing loads of stuff like that, where it's like, right, we're reopening the theatres so that only young people can go, and it's for really stunted prices. Cinemas,
but part of the problem of that is because also, so like with student populations, a big problem is going to be, so particularly for someone like London, is you're getting, so if there's regions more affected by it than other regions, so loads of people are going to come to uni in London, loads of young people are going to come to uni in London, and some of those people are going to be carrying the virus. And then the idea is, so like even if you're going to spread it across all the young people who won't die from it, the idea is if you keep spreading it across all of the young people, it's going to get to people who are going to die from it. Plus, we can't have a country that's entirely infected by it, so it is good to kind of keep the rate down, because if it's a horrible disease.
Oh, is it?
It's a horrible.
You've come to the right place.
You heard it here first. But it's, I don't know. I think I like the sentiment of it, but I'm kind of more of the opinion of it's best to just get this shit over with.
Okay.
As in, just kind of have the biggest, as in, like, do all the measures that we need to do to stop it spreading so that we can stop all this nonsense.
Right, well, we come to the end of the show. This has been we've touched on a lot of things. Are you ready to try and sum it up?
Fucking hell, yeah.
We've talked about
where did we start?
we talked about relationships, sci-fi. We talked about
what did we start off with?
Joe Rogan. We talked about Joe Rogan, sci-fi, open relationships, mayors, Andy Burnham, lockdown, and sperm donation.
We all like to sit back and recline to a good podcast. That's why you're here now, listening to this content. We often like to do it with Joe Rogan. And what that presents is an interesting idea as to who the people are that are doing the podcast and what legacy they leave for their children.
Or grandchildren.
Or grandchildren. And we can't always choose who those children or grandchildren would be if we become a sperm donator. That creates a lot of chaos in the world. Having this idea that we won't be part of something that's so clear and defined, much like it would be to be in an open relationship. But at the end of the day, all you need is Andy Burnham getting on the mic for a BBC News conference and telling us what Manchester needs and what Manchester wants. And that's maybe what we all need and what we all want.
Thanks for listening, guys. See you next week.